Hello, I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley.
And I'm her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi and I want to welcome you to Open to Hope Conversations, the podcast.
We believe that the greatest gift you can give yourself after a loss is hope, using this moment to connect with others who have not only survived but thrived.
So let's get started. Welcome to the Open to Hope show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Heidi. You want to?
Well, I really this topic is near and dear to my heart because you know that my daughter lost a dear friend of hers, Cooper Stock, years ago when he was run over by a cab here in New York City on West End Avenue. And she's been very involved in Families for Safe Streets, as are the people on our show today. And it is so important to create safe streets all over the country and world. And I've got to tell you, now you not only have cars and trucks but you have bikes, and now
Yes.
you have electric bikes, and you just have a lot of things that can make streets unsafe. So I'm very much looking forward to talking about this today because the women today here on this show are saving lives. I'll start with Amy Cohen. Amy co-founded Safe Streets after her 12-year-old son, Sammy, was killed crossing the street in a pedestrian zone. She will be joined today by Dr. Regina Bateson. Regina is an assistant professor in the political science department at the University of Colorado Boulder. She conducted a long-term study of Families for Safe Streets, and her findings were published in Perspectives on Politics. So we'll talk a little bit about what she found. And we will also be joined by Ana Theis. Ana is a caseworker for supporting Spanish-speaking members. She is involved with virtual support gatherings, a peer mentoring program, and a logistical assistant for navigating the challenges after a crash. So welcome to our podcast, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
It's great to have you all on. Well, why don't we start with you, Amy?
So October 8th of this year, I marked 11 years since I lost my 12-year-old. He was an amazing kid. He was bright, kind, athletic, the light of my life. And he was incredibly, he had an incredible amount of perseverance and courage, which I have been trying to channel since he died. Just a few weeks before he was killed, he rode a 100-mile bike ride in New York City. It's called a Century Ride. And at mile 75, my husband called and said, I don't think we're going to finish. Sammy was exhausted. He was like, I don't quit. He overheard, he got up, he got on the bike, and he was the youngest person to finish the full 100 miles. So after that, I have really tried to channel that courage, that fearlessness, that perseverance. And so I came together and joined with others, including Dana Lerner.
How did he die?
He was just trying to cross the street. He had come home from middle school, went to school in the neighborhood, which is unusual in New York City, stopped for a snack, and was crossing the street to go to soccer practice. And it shouldn't be a deadly act. And after he was killed, my husband said to me, if only this had been London, where we had gone that summer on vacation, then, maybe Sammy would still be alive. That there are proven solutions that if you put them in place, people are safer. Legislatively fighting to lower speed limits and design streets so that people drive carefully, putting in place. We don't want anyone to be at risk. So if we design things where people all have a place to go and put in place technology to make sure everyone is safe, we know that it really does save lives.
How long after your son died did you start the program of Families for Safe Street?
So right after Sammy died, right away, I started speaking out individually. I joined together with others, with a local street safety group, and we came together for the first time just a few months after Sammy died. We announced ourselves in February of 2014 and said our first fight was going to be to try to get permission from the state legislature to lower our speed limit in New York City. And people told me when we went to Albany together as a group, people told us all that, oh, that takes 10 years to change a law in Albany state, New York state government. And our first event was in February as a press conference, and in June, we were standing with the governor signing the bill.
Wow.
Wow.
Who does that remind you of? Candy Lightner did exactly the same thing, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. She actually started it right away, and the organization, but she did say something, and I wondered if you resonate with this at all. We've interviewed Candy probably 3 times, Heidi, I would say. And she said that one of the downsides of starting right away is that you do hold some grief, that after you get it going and can relax a little bit, it is kind of hard.
You know, I would say, and it's some of the things that when you hear from Regina, she found the same thing. Like, we all have so much pain, as you both know all too well, after this horror happens to you. And I am a social worker by training, and I know both from the literature and personally, like, if you bottle it up, it's worse, right? We cannot keep it inside. It needs a healthy outlet. And, you know, it's not like we're not feeling this pain each and every day. And for me and for many of us in Families for Safe Streets, people say over and over again how helpful it is to let it out in a productive way, right? Like, I talk about how I titrate the pain in a way that I'm releasing it in a way that I know will make a difference.
All right. And so, Regina, you had a child's eye also?
No, I have not. But I was doing research with Families for Safe Streets for really about the past 10 years or so, and intermittently. And so, I mean, I'll just say I'm a political scientist, so I'm a researcher, and that's how I came to know Amy and to know about Families for Safe Streets. And the project that I was doing focused on, understanding the motivations behind this kind of long-term activism by bereaved families, and in the case of Families for Safe Streets, by people who've been seriously injured as well. And something I observed, I think, maybe that resonates with what Amy was saying, is that, people's involvement in the group ebbed and flowed over time. But I think something that's a little bit unique about Families for Safe Streets is that they have this model of combining support with activism. And so, I saw that even when people needed to step away for a period of time, and then maybe get back engaged at a later time, there's that flexibility within the group. And, I think people can customize their level of involvement to wherever they are, to meet wherever they are, in their journey after loss.
Yeah.
And I would say it's pretty powerful to go to one of your events, because I have been at some of these, and I mean, you've got Sammy and Cooper and these kids that have been killed leading the way, because their pictures are right there, and it puts a name and a face to these horrific events that are happening, to these kids being killed. And the things that you've done are pretty unbelievable, the changes that have been made in the city and throughout the country. So I can see why I kind of think that it would be healing and empowering, because, when you've had a death, you can often feel like a victim. You can feel so helpless. You can feel, and to turn that grief outward into action, I would think would be pretty healing.
And I think what's unique about us is that we don't ask people to do this alone. Like, we really try to create a container where people felt held and supported. People can just do the support services. They can just do the advocacy. They can do both. They can do the support until they feel ready. And, it's really, I think, a unique and special combination. We have a team of social workers, and including Ana, English and Spanish, virtual and in person, support groups and peer mentoring. I'd love to turn it over to Ana to share some of the families that we work with and what she feels like we offer them.
Absolutely. We believe that when someone goes through a car crash, they shouldn't have to deal with everything alone. So first, when we connect with a new member, we have a call to understand their needs. We provide our post-crash resource guide that is also available in Spanish and other languages. In that way, they will be able to know their rights, navigate the legal systems, and more. And we can also refer them to other type of helps if it's needed. In terms of our support services, we have the peer mentoring program, where new members are matched with old members who has been trained as a mentor. As I mentioned before, we now offer this program in Spanish as well. For example, if someone tragically lost a partner after a car crash, we try to match them with a mentor who has experienced the same type of loss. And we believe that this program is incredible, powerful, because the only person who is able to understand your situation is somebody who already went through the same situation. Also, we do have our support meetings and gatherings, virtual and in person, where all members, including new ones, can join. These meetings cover different type of topics, like, for example, we have a new one, a spouse partner loss support group. We have a new grief support group that is facilitated by our senior social worker. And in the same way that we have these support programs in English, we offer a space for Spanish-speaking members. I now facilitate monthly support meetings in Spanish, both online and in person. These meetings have created a safe space for Spanish speakers, as many when faced with situations like this. They don't know where to turn or what resources they have available, and we make sure to inform them about the rights, resources, and more. Even
So if you do the in person where is that? That's just in Manhattan or?
correct. It's mostly in New York City.
We always felt strongly that everybody deserves to get to their destination safely. And when you prioritize people who are walking or biking to get their destination safely, then everyone does. But our fight is to make sure whether you're walking, scooting, rolling, driving, or a passenger in our car, that we achieve what's known as Vision Zero, that no one should have to pay with their life just by trying to get to school or to work. And we've created a new initiative that I want to be sure to share. We have an online memorial that allows people to honor their loved one or their crash, to really give a face to the crisis for, the media, for decision makers. And, it's a way for people who've been impacted by traffic violence to find and connect with us for future support and advocacy. So we really hope everyone who is listening to this, who has lost a family member to traffic violence, which is what we call it, right? These are not accidents. These are crashes or collisions because they are preventable. Anybody who's experienced this horror, honors their loved one and shares their story on our.
Now, what is the major legislation that you're trying to pass now, or what's your major initiative right now?
So we did start in New York City, but we now have 20 chapters across the country and over 1,000 members fighting individually in their community, many in places where we don't yet have a chapter. And we really have 3 key pillars that we all fight for, which is, lowering speed limits and enforcing it with speed safety cameras, designing roads, which is very technical, but it's basically narrowing roadways so people drive more carefully, putting things out so they can turn more carefully, setting the lights in a certain way. So all these roadway design changes, and then safer vehicles to make sure we have safe vehicle design and technology. So one of our big fights right now on the national level is pushing for a technology called intelligent speed assistance. We're really encouraging both municipalities and now the federal government to install this technology in their car so that they are the safest drivers on the road and setting an example. So it basically prevents you from speeding. It's anti-speeding technology. And we always say, starting with, government workers driving government vehicles should follow government speed limits. Our second pillar on the vehicles is to put that same technology in the cars of the most dangerous drivers. So we have a bill in New York that is model legislation that's being replicated in other states, that just like drunk driving, that mad thought that you have to have ignition interlocks in your car so you can't drive when you're drunk. We're saying that people who've been proven to speed lots and lots of times or drive really recklessly should get this technology added to their car. It can be added to any car for a very modest fee.
And the technology is that your car can only go so fast? Is that?
So it can either go at the speed limit. Most of the programs set it 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit, and then you can't go any faster than that. And it
I love
reads
it.
what the speed limit is. It knows when it's 25 and 35 and 55. You
That's
know,
great.
your car, if you think about it, if anybody has a new car, you know, when you're driving, it's telling you what the speed limit is. So it's using the same technology. And then making it that when you press your foot on the accelerator, you just won't be able to go faster than you're supposed to go.
That's wonderful. I had a question for Regina about her research. So you did a long-term study of families for safe streets. What did you find?
Yeah, so I was doing a qualitative research project, doing interviews, doing participant observation, coming with on some of the lobbying trips to Albany that Amy was describing. And from that project, I really wanted to understand, why people had gotten involved in the group and also sort of what their experiences were like, how they were understanding their participation, what was motivating them to keep going despite some of the challenges of this type of activism and advocacy work. And so what I found was that the group members' participation was really a powerful way of them finding meaning and making meaning in the losses that they'd suffered, and that there were several specific types of meaning making that they were able to access through their activism and through involvement in politics that might have been hard to get at otherwise. So one type was kind of developing new narratives about what had happened and seeing these crashes as preventable, seeing them as part of a broader public policy problem, and seeing it in that broader context where it's not something isolated that just happened to their family, but this is a society-wide systemic problem. And then second, developing a feeling of helping others, right? So being able to take some kind of concrete action, working on the types of legislation that Amy was describing to try to reduce the chances that other similar crashes, would harm other families in the future. So that sense of helping others is very compelling, I think. And then the third thing I noticed was that people often felt that they were trying to fulfill obligations to the person that had been killed, or trying to, create some kind of positive change in their memory, trying to sort of live out their legacy, or kind of as Amy described earlier, right, trying to act in a way that was consistent with their values and their character and what they felt that the deceased person would have wanted them to do. So those were 3 types of meaning making that I observed that the group members were able to pursue through their activism.
Thank you for all the work you're doing. It's great.
I would definitely like to encourage families to reach out for support, whether through our organization, Families for Safe Streets, or other resources that they might have available. Connecting with others who understand can make a world of difference. And it is essential to remember that this situation takes time, and it is okay to ask for help along the way.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
I would say the same thing. No one should ever have to endure this alone. I know for me, meeting with others early on saved my life. And, having an outlet for your pain that is positive and feels productive, and when you're not doing it alone, also can be transformative. So for whatever people want, whether it's the support or the advocacy or both, we are here.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Amy.
you. Gina, do you have any passing thoughts?
Well, I'd just say that when I was with Families for Safe Streets and going with them to these meetings and lobbying sessions, I was really struck by the fact that sharing their stories in this way, it wasn't just transformational and important to them. It also had a really big political impact. So like Amy was saying, in Families for Safe Streets' first big legislative battle, they were really trying to do something that most people saw as impossible. And they succeeded in a short period of time. And I think a big part of the reason why they were able to do that was the sharing of these personal stories. And, I saw firsthand the way that resonated with legislators. So I would just encourage people that, of course, there are personal benefits to participating in this kind of work and joining with Families for Safe Streets, but there are also really significant, concrete, real-world impacts that the group has been able to have.
I love it. Well, thank you. So I want to give you the last word, Amy, because I want you to give your websites and everything to people, and any way you want them to contact you.
Great. So we are located online, familiesforsafestreets.org, or social media, Fam for Safe Streets. We also have a toll-free number that is on our website. So we look forward to connecting with everyone who needs the support or wants to get engaged.
Well, we want to thank you guys all for being on, and we want to thank Sammy for making all this happen.
Yes, thank you so much. And, like you said, Sammy is your guiding light, just as my brother is mine. And, you are all doing so much to keep all of us safe and to prevent more people from dying, to be quite honest with you. So thank you so much for this incredible work that you're doing.
We want to thank everyone for joining us on this show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
I'm Dr. Heidi Horsley. You have been listening to Open to Hope, the podcast. You can follow Open to Hope on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. To learn more, visit us at opentohope.com and go to Apple Podcasts to subscribe.
I'm Dr. Gloria Horsley. Join us again next week for another Open to Hope conversation, where we invite you to lean on our hope until you find your own.